It's a new year, and now is the best time to review your insurance policies. With a helpful customer service team here to serve you in Alabama and over in Mississippi for all of your auto, home, life, and business insurance needs, call the Jeff Nee Agency of Alpha Insurance to create a customized plan to protect your family's home and autos. You can stop by his office at 3428 McFarland Boulevard in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, or simply call 205 462 8192 or call the number on your screen right there. And remember, with Alpha Insurance, the more you protect it, the more you save. Reach out to the Jeff Nee Agency of Alpha today for all of your auto, home, life, and business insurance needs. This is the Stingray Show, and coming up on this edition, we are doing the part 2 of the interview with former running back from Tennessee, Gerald Riggs. We had part 1 over his career and on Tuesday morning. However, Restream cut off abruptly, so we had to scrap the rest of the interview. Gerald was nice enough to join us again this morning, so we will finish up that interview right now on this edition of the Stingray Show, talking about the career of Gerald Riggs Jr. at Tennessee and also in the NFL, coming up next.
Hi, this is Tim Brando with a reminder. Look out, you're about to feel the buzz of Stingray.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
I'm Heath Hopkins. I'm here in DeSoto County, Mississippi, right outside of Memphis, Tennessee.
You know, Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you feel that responsibility to pay it forward and give some kid a chance coming up in the ranks, kind of like Tony did for you?
Why do you think I'm talking to Stingray tonight?
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
No, I mean, look, no.
Heath, Stingray, Here's the deal. When you get involved with Texas, it's like getting married to a stripper. and let me explain this. It looks good. It's kind of sexy on the surface. Yeah. But then you get the baggage, you get the drama, you get all that eventually comes with it. And that's what you get with Texas, and that's what the Big 12 learned.
And Heath, any thoughts on our show moving forward?
Hey, with the Stingray Show, if you don't like it, you better learn to love it, because it's the best show going today, baby. Woo!
And with that, I want to welcome you inside another edition of the Stingray Show here on this Thursday morning. Really do want to thank Gerald Riggs for joining us once again for twice this week here on the Stingray Show. Heath, you gotta love technology, and as well, I don't know about on your end, but on my end, we had a lot of positive comments about Gerald Riggs' stories. They say that they were amazing, they were really funny and entertaining.
Yeah, Gerald's been a wonderful guest. But Steven, you're 30 minutes late to the party, man. I wanted to get this party going early. We wanted to rock and roll. We got a great guest.
Hey, he said 8:30, so here we are.
Oh, 8:15, brother. But hey, I can't wait. Let's do it. Let's rock and roll. Let's have some big fun. Because Gerald was awesome the other day.
Heath, make sure your microphone is on because there is feedback on your end.
Oh, look at there.
All right.
How about Gerald, that? Here we go.
How are things with you, my friend?
Doing great, man. Another morning, another back at it. Another
yes, sir.
Gerald, if we do this again, I'm going to have to send you a Christmas card. I feel like we're buddies now. You know? But
hey, all gifts are accepted, buddy.
Yes. So, Gerald, a little bit, we really do want to thank you for joining us again, and we do apologize for the technical issues, but there is one question the last time that I did not ask you about your first season there at Tennessee, and let's start right there. What was your welcome to the SEC moment where it was like, okay, this is different?
Great
Uh,
question. I was going to ask that
well,
first. Great
it wasn't.
question.
I wouldn't say it was different. It was expected. I just, it was just the way it happened. So you got to bear with me on this story because it's a little, it's got parts to it. So, um, we have our first full pad practice, um, and Coach Fulmer, this is a thing that we realized he liked to do. The first full pad practice, usually, our practice schedule will go, we warm up, go into individual period, then we'd go into, a few other little team tempo periods and things like that. But on the first day of two-a-days, he liked to try to switch things up. He would go warm ups, um, a little bit of a a little bit of an individual period, and then we'd go right into goal line period,
Mm-hmm.
where offense has got 4 plays to score from inside the 5, and they keep score throughout practice. So I'll never forget, it's my first day of actual practice, first day of full pads. We're down on the baseball field, and I'm standing there pretty much, like, hey, all right. He goes, one's up. So I'm thinking, all right, hey, I'm staying over here and relax, kind of just cool and watch and get some mental reps, as they call it. And he goes, Riggs, you're in. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, this first one up. I was like, so I throw my helmet on, jump in there, and like I said, we had 3 plays to score, all run plays. Offensive linemen, they love goal line drill and short yardage. So they hand me the ball. I first play I score. Second play, I get stopped on like the 1 or something like that. Third play I score again, and then on the last one I score, and it was a pretty physical play, but it's against one's defense, so it's like one offensive line, one offense, one defense, everybody. So I get in, everybody's like, okay, see what you got, you know what I mean? We see you a little bit, so I'm feeling great about myself. Thinking like, hey man, this is not as hard as what it was what I thought it was going to be. And then so the next day we have practice. I'll never forget, we're on the goal line. We have this play called 2 divide, right? So guys who, if there's guys who are listening or anybody who's been around, it was a play where, we're on the goal line. It's a short yardage play. You step one way, come back the other way, follow your blocking, and, pretty much should walk in, or at least, should get some positive yardage. Well, my dumbass, being excited, not thinking, I run it the other way, and Kevin Burnett screaming on a gap blitz, and I mean, just absolutely tattoos me like right in the mouth. And and he literally, I'm on my back, and I'm like, damn it, you know what I mean? Like, come on, man, this is not the way to start, your second day off. And he literally looks at me. He literally like holds my face down. He was like, "Yeah, welcome to the SEC, man." I was like, and and I just remember being pissed off for the rest of the day, because I was like, damn, my one chance to show I could be consistent, and first impressions are everything, and I got smacked right in the mouth, man. So that was kind of my welcome to Tennessee moment. There were some other ones that I can't really discuss, but there were some other ones that were pretty good too. Because we had, they had different ways. Now it's now everybody gets kind of in their feelings about it these days. About hazing and all these different things, right? But when you come into, I would say, when you come into an organization like that, and somewhat of a fraternity, where you guys got to go out there and fight your tail off for a couple hours on Saturdays, and got to be able to trust each other. There's going to be ways they're going to test you, and some of those ways that they would do it were pretty interesting. But my favorite was the ice tub. But guys who were there, if you know, the ice tub was kind of a crazy thing. But outside of that, I would say that was my welcome to SEC moment.
Gerald, who was your first favorite player? Was it your dad? Was it somebody else?
Ooh, so I mean, I guess you can naturally say it was my dad. because he was in the middle of his career about the time that I was, or kind of at the not the middle or the end, but kind of like on the back end of his career. So he was still having a lot of success. So I would say, he was probably one of my favorite, my first favorite player. But I guess you can't really count that because you know what I'm saying. You kind of, you kind of feel obligated. I guess. No, I'm just kidding. But I would have to say honestly, man. Deion Sanders was my favorite player, my first favorite player.
Okay.
Growing up as an Atlanta kid, who didn't like primetime, man? You know what I'm saying? Braves, Falcons, primetime shoes.
I just
Like I said,
remember the videos.
like I said, I was a big Florida State guy, right? Like I was a big Florida State guy growing up. Love the Noles. So, watching Deion, taking punts back versus Clemson and everybody, you know what I mean? Just, I had to get that shot in because I got some Clemson friends. But, just this, Deion Sanders was the guy, man. So, it was kind of hard not to be a Deion Sanders fan growing up in Atlanta in the 80s and late 90s.
I wanted to follow that up with: is there a running back that you and your dad just disagree on? Like, you think he's great, your dad thinks he's bad, or your dad thinks he's great, you think he's bad?
No, we're pretty much on the same page in terms of our hierarchy in terms of running backs. There's a couple guys that my dad just can absolutely not stand.
And who are they? Let us know.
I'll probably get killed for this, right? Because there's going to be a lot of Tennessee people watching. But the one running back my dad could not stand was Eddie George. He was like, everybody's like, yeah, and he probably was like, why are you telling people this? But no, his thing with Eddie George was, Eddie George is, he's a big guy. He's 6'3", and I think, he would have 1,500-yard seasons, but get the ball a ton, you know what I mean? Average about like 3.5 yards, 3.7 yards, carry, stuff like that. And my dad was like, you could fall for that. You know what I mean? You could literally fall for 3 yards in the NFL. So he would just always, it was just something about Eddie George, man. My dad just like, if you bring his name up, he's just like, ugh. Like he just cannot like get around it, get his head around it. But no, we're pretty much on the same page with backs. I mean, we, of course, Sweetness, Walter Payton, you know what I'm saying, is at the top of the list, because he was the trendsetter. He was the guy. So you have to give a nod to him just because, of the table that he set for everybody else. But as far as my guys go, man, I am definitely one of those guys that gives people their flowers when they deserve it. Right. Even though we were around the same time, I just think natural ability and just the nastiness to go out there and play the position, man, you got to give Adrian Peterson. He was a dude, man. I mean, he was absolutely a dude. I tried to compete with him as much as I could in terms of, being in a different conference and playing in, obviously, those numbers didn't live up to each other. But at the same time, I was splitting time where he was not splitting time and all that sort of stuff. So, you have that element involved. But I mean, he was just a dude. And then when I was in high school, probably really trying to establish myself and really pattern my game. Two guys stuck out for me, and that was LaDainian Tomlinson and Marshall Faulk. Because they could do anything you want them to do, right? They can run between the tackles, they could get outside. They have the speed to, hit the corners. They can, you can line them up, in the slot and run. They could catch passes. They could be very much involved in the pass game. They were great pass blockers for not being that, not bigger guys, right? So. And they were just unstoppable, man. I mean, like you had to hold your breath every time they got the ball. So I would say from my time, growing up when I was patterning my game, definitely LaDainian or Marshall Faulk. Everybody always brings up Emmitt Smith, but I'm like, dude, you got that offensive line, man. As my dad said, you can fall forward and get first downs. No, nothing against Emmitt Smith. He was awesome. But,
I would love to run behind Larry Walker. Like, the shape I'm in now, I think I could get you 40 yards.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, what they have, Larry, what was it? Nate Newton, Larry Allen, Kevin Gogan, golly, they have. I mean, they just have some dudes, man.
I
That
said Larry
offensive line
Walker.
was
I'm going to say
massive.
Larry Allen. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Late
That
Larry
offensive
Allen.
line was just massive, man. Like they were something out of a comic book, really.
Gerald, I'll share this real quick about Larry Allen because I had so much respect for him, and I think you'll laugh at this story. Have you ever heard John Randall's story about Larry Allen?
I can't say that I have, but speaking of John Randall, that's probably one of my dad's favorite defensive players too. If you want to talk about that, but go ahead, yeah.
John Randall said the very first time they were playing the Cowboys, he's younger guy, and they were like, "Hey, look, you're just going to get dominated this week." He's like, "Man, I can handle it." It's like, it's Larry Allen. No one
handles it. Is this
handles
the train story?
Well, no, he said very first play, Larry Allen drives him about 7.5 yards and drops him. And they just sat there, and he gets up and looks at the sideline. They're like, "It's okay, you got it." And then he said he drug down. He said Larry Allen gets him, and he gets a hold of the running back and brings him down. It's like 11-yard gain. And he said coaches in the whole sideline was like, "That's great. That's amazing." He said it was 11-yard pickup. And he just said, he goes, "I then knew what everyone was trying to tell me all week." He said it got better as the game went on. I was stopping him for 4 to 6 yards a play, but
Right.
he said if they ran behind Larry Allen, he said there's just nothing you could do.
Yeah, he. I mean, you see all the different highlights of him, and what he's doing. From a standpoint of, just to be a guy that big, to be that athletic, and to be able to just kind of to move the way he does and not be able just moving guys off the ball. The one I don't think he was anybody he struggled with, right? Like you I think maybe if you look back over the film, and probably the only person he maybe had to deal with that wasn't as much of a problem was anytime they moved Reggie White inside, but that wasn't very often. They pretty much kept him on the edge. So, it was, like I said, he was just dominant, man. He was just one of those guys you really had to. There was no game plan for him. He pretty much could X out that guy who was ever over him.
So, Gerald, I do want to talk about your career, and let's begin this interview in the 2004 season. That, of course, was the year that Tennessee finished 10-3 and won the SEC East, making it to the SEC championship game. Gerald, when did you know that 2004 team was going to be special?
I think it was really that Georgia game in Athens that year.
Okay.
We started out against UNLV at home.
Mm-hmm.
Cupcake game as they call them, right? So, we had, there was a lot of competition everywhere on that team.
Yes.
During fall camp, right? You had a lot of guys that were, we had a lot of young talent, but we also had a lot of guys that had played a lot of football, but it was very even in terms of what, guys could contribute, right? We just had a lot of depth at pretty much every position. So, camp was a nightmare from a standpoint of just, being, having to be at that competitive level every single day. So you kind of had hints that we were going to be good, but, we obviously we played Auburn. I think we played Florida. We won that game, a game that, nobody picked us to win. We come out Auburn, we struggle, we lose that game. We had freshman quarterbacks at the time. And then when we played in that Georgia game, Georgia was ranked third, just coming off of beating defending national champion LSU. And for us to go out there and play the way that we did, for us to kind of circle the wagons and offense played great, defense played great. And it was just one of those games, man, where we just had to really grind it out and we found out a lot about ourselves that day. And I think after that moment, everybody just kind of realized, like, okay, we really have we have the juice to make the season pretty special. So I think at that moment, everybody just truly locked in, really realizing our potential. And we went out there and we had a tough stretch that year too, man. I think it was like we had Florida, Auburn, Georgia, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Alabama, Notre Dame, all within the span of like 8 weeks, right? I mean, it was back to back to back to back to back. We had no rest whatsoever. We kind of limped into the Notre Dame game, and we laid down a stinker that day. You know what I mean? But I think a lot of guys were kind of just banged up after, like I said, an 8-week stretch.
Right.
So we ended up dropping that one. But we kind of picked up. Everybody started getting healthy, and we picked our stride back up, and we were able to get to that SEC title game. So we knew that Georgia game that we were going to be a pretty special football team.
Now, Gerald, a quick follow-up to that. The best game of your career came in the SEC championship game. You just mentioned it versus Auburn when you rushed for 182 yards on 11 rushes and 2 touchdowns. Walk us through that incredible performance and what the hype was surrounding that game that week there in Atlanta of Tennessee versus Auburn.
I remember having to do well because I'm like, hey, I'm back at home and I got about 75 people here at this game. So if I go out there and don't play well, I'm gonna get talked about pretty bad. So that was the biggest thing. No, but seriously, I remember it was our second opportunity to play Auburn.
Right.
We were sitting there with 2 losses. They were undefeated. And, the biggest, I think, people who have been around long enough to understand that was kind of the tipping point of how they treat the SEC now, right? Or at least how they've treated the SEC for the last 20 some odd years. Mm-hmm. Because since 98 up to that point in 2004, there hadn't been an SEC team in the national championship. Right. So with Auburn sitting there undefeated and the way that they did the rankings and the way that they, tallied everything up, Auburn had to win that game in style, right? Yeah. Because they had USC, they had Oklahoma, that was at the top. So Auburn had to kind of blow us out. And they were pretty much picking them to blow us out because they did earlier in the year when we had a freshman quarterback, throw it to the other team more than he threw it to us. So I'll leave him alone. But right. No, but for us to go into that game, big underdog in that game. Right. We were just like we were just upset just simply because everybody wrote us off as just being this huge underdog. We were like, hey, man, we had a bad day, earlier in the year, but we're a lot better football team than what everybody thinks. And then personally, it was a big deal because you had, Cedric and I were splitting time just like Cadillac and Ronnie Brown were. And so, for us, we didn't really measure ourselves by them, but at the same time, everyone else did. Everyone else kind of measured the SEC and running backs at the time by kind of what Auburn was doing. Because Grant, kudos to those guys, man. They were hell on wheels, man. So, right. To get in that, we wanted to outperform them basically in that day, right? Like we wanted to let everybody know we were the best tandem in the SEC and in the country. And so, we just went out there and played our hearts out, man. Played our ass off. I'll be honest, man. I did not remember the game until I had to watch it. That was just kind of the focus that I had that night, where it was blackout. Like when you asked me the next day, like, hey man, like, remember that? I was like, I don't remember a damn thing, dude. Like it was just one of those moments where you just kind of black out and go compete and play as hard as you can. And, you had to watch the film, a couple days later to just kind of realize what happened. I didn't really, I honestly, during the game, I wasn't thinking about anything in terms of, what I was doing stats wise, runs wise, nothing. I was just out there competing, doing my job. And so, when people bring that game up, they're like, "Oh man, you remember that?" Now I do remember now that when you kind of sit down and think about it, memories come back to you, and it's kind of, whatever they call it, saying when, you start having flashbacks of everything that you've done. And I remember the first long run I had, the 80-yard run. I mean, the hole was when they say the hole is as big as, a Mack truck, man, it was huge.
Yeah.
Like I just remember getting the ball and my eyes dart left and I see the hole. And I was like, if you don't get through this hole, man, you're slow as hell. Like, just get you, you know what I'm saying? Like,
if you got time to think and talk to yourself, that's a big hole.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? Like, like I remember we had to play, and we called this play up because Auburn's deep, and it was and kudos to Randy Sanders, who's, shout out to that guy because I learned so much football from him. He gets kind of a bad rap, from people.
Yes,
but
he does.
But I'm gonna tell you something about Randy Sanders before I go into this. Randy Sanders is probably one of the best damn football coaches to coach college football in terms of just on the staff. Knows how to get production out of his guys. Knows the game of football. He taught me so much, man. And a lot of people don't understand. Don't realize he was a big architect in those Florida State years
Right.
with Jameis Winston and in his development as a quarterback, right? So, but Randy Sanders designed that year. Auburn was very aggressive, sideline to sideline. Like if you started trying to run sideline to sideline, you were not going to get yards against Auburn, and they hadn't allowed an 100-yard rusher, I think, in like a year and a half. I mean, they were that good. So Randy devised this play where, our fullback would basically do outside zone action. Our offensive line's doing, normal inside zone action. I'm doing inside zone action. But we knew that their linebackers were keying off of our fullback. So they took off outside of him, and then we had basically a bubble reverse coming behind it because we knew their safety would add in. Right, once they see zone, their safety is going to drop down and add in to plug that extra gap that usually gets neglected in that situation. So what ends up happening was that when we did the reverse, the safety hung outside with his eyes on the reverse, so it kept that hole there, and we called it 4-zone bluff. And I'll never forget the call. We called it 4-zone bluff, and like I said, when I got it, man, like the hole was. I mean, it was huge, man. I literally, you're looking at your peripheral vision, you're seeing stuff, and I see a couple guys, but then when my eyes catch the hole, like there was literally nobody there, like nobody, like all you could see was the end zone. So I just remember it was like, hey man, I just remember saying to him, pick your damn knees up, and I put my foot in the ground and just took off, man. It was, it's probably the easiest touchdown I've ever scored in my life.
With Randy Sanders, you were talking about, I can't remember the game. But I remember Coach Fulmer just kind of threw him under the bus one game, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And I felt so bad for Randy Sanders.
Yeah.
And I just kind of shook my head about it. And I was like, man, I can't believe this is happening and playing out in front of the media. Now you see it more often, but back then that was kind of like a big no-no.
Well, it's still a no-no if you ask me.
I've heard several players tell me over the many years that Randy Sanders is just a phenom of a guy. He is a superb coach, just a phenomenal coach. And yet Tennessee fans hung this guy out to dry every set. If you guys didn't put 60 on the board, they were hanging him out to dry. And when you lost, they wanted to burn his house to the ground.
I mean, we are talking about Tennessee fans, man. So let's keep it in perspective, right? Like Tennessee fans are spoiled, especially in the 90s and late 90s and 2000s, right? So I can admit that, right? Like,
right.
But no, to your point, Randy was absolutely amazing. And yeah, man, he took a lot of unnecessary
he did
shots, you know what I mean, from fans. He took a lot of unnecessary shots from pundits. And it was, it used to piss us off, honestly, because we'd be like, it ain't Randy's fault, man. Like, and I mean, I'll probably get killed for this from some people, but I remember one game. I can't remember exactly what game it was. We had a game plan. We were ready to go. We were like, all right, this is great. We talked about it, went over it during the week. And, Randy's got everything set up. We're all queued up. Everybody knows what their job is. And Phil comes in on a Wednesday and was like, we're not doing that. Like, we're just going to do this. And it was like, what the hell, man? We've been working on this shit since Sunday.
Right.
And then, Wednesday we come in and, we changed the whole game plan. So, without getting into too much detail, but at the same time, that kind of stuff would happen, right? So
Right.
Did you win that week?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we got our ass kicked. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. I can't remember what. I want to say it was that Georgia game in 2005 that happened.
Okay.
Where we just laid an egg at home. So I want to say it was that game.
Wow.
And it wasn't Randy's fault at all. Like we had a game plan. We had a solid game plan. But like I said, Coach Fulmer, for whatever reason, man, woke up that morning and decided, to choose violence and came in on Wednesday and was like, "We're changing the game plan." So
Wow.
Did that happen a lot?
Was that?
Did that happen a lot?
I just remember that week. It was very public. It was very much like he came in the offensive, meeting that we would have where it was the entire offense sitting in there watching the film and going over, our plays and assignments and keys and everything. And Coach Fulmer just came in and completely changed it right there on the spot. Just said, we're not doing that.
Wow.
That now, I don't know if that happened a lot in the meeting room when it was just the coaches. I don't know if that happened a lot, any other case, but I just remember that particular time. That happened that day. So I was just kind of like, well, this is the type of shit Randy goes through, man. Like, I really feel bad for the guy. You know what I mean? Because, like I said, he's a master. He's a master, man. And he knows ball. As the kids like to say, man, do you know ball? Like, yeah, man, he knows ball, dude. Like he can go out there and do, he'll draw something up. You know what I mean? There's times where, he would just draw something up right there on the spot, man. And, it was 6. So, Randy was awesome, man. I truly loved playing with Randy.
If Tennessee fans' kids got bit by mosquitoes, they blamed Randy Sanders.
Yeah. It felt like that for a while,
everything.
right? It felt like that for a while.
It's cloudy today. Randy Sanders, man. They blamed him for anything.
Heath, I hate comparing apples to oranges, but that seems like a lot about what Mike Bobo is going through over in Athens.
Steven, that's an excellent point.
I mean, my gosh.
Mike Bobo he gets the worst rap from Georgia fans and media.
That sounds just like what Mike Bobo is going through right now.
Yeah, some of my Georgia guys, like a lot. I'm close with a lot of Georgia guys for obvious reasons. Even though I cannot stand that school, and anybody who barks as a grown man, you need help. Yeah. I got a crazy story about that one too, but
just share it
as a fan. But no, some of even a lot of the Georgia guys, man, they say the same thing. They're like, man, right. Bobo's cool. Now you have some mixed feelings, right? Like there's some guys who they get kind of frustrated with him on game day, and but then there's a lot of guys who support him too. So I mean, you're right about that. I think there's a correlation between how Randy was treated and how Bobo's kind of looked at amongst the Georgia community right now.
Right.
So the funny story about the barking was, I never forget. What game was I'm trying to think? Was it the Hail Mary game or was it? I can't remember if it was the Hail Mary game or another. I think it was. So, yeah, as a matter of fact, it was because it was a birthday gift from a friend of mine who worked at CBS.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, "Hey, got your birthday gift," and I was like, "Well, what's the gift?" And so we had like eight tickets on like the 8th row at Athens behind Tennessee's bench. But we were in a major Georgia, it wasn't where the Tennessee people were. It was like right smack in the middle of red, right? And I'm not stupid, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to really make myself known. Right. I'm just going to watch the game and enjoy myself. But of course that don't happen. And I remember, I start, my football mind kicks in as I'm watching, because usually like in Knoxville, if I'm at the game in Knoxville, I'm standing on the field. Right. And I do that on purpose because I get too emotionally wrapped up into the game and I get technically wrapped into the game. So like if you hear some idiot fan that knows nothing about football start talking, like I'll just, it'll eventually turn into an argument. So I'm sitting in the stands watching that game, and I pretty much figure out what Georgia's doing on offense.
Right.
So I'm calling their plays. I'm like, they're going outside zone. They're going play action. They're going, hey, he's going to run the cross. He's going to run this. And their fans are getting pissed off, like around me. They're like, how the hell do you know what we're running and this and that and the other? And they started like, you working for them. I was like, dude, like, just watch the game, man. Just watch the game. So Georgia gets up. Jacob Eason throws that crazy touchdown with like 8 seconds left in the corner. And this grown-ass man turns around with kids, too. That's even more embarrassing. Turns around and just starts barking at me, like, just and I'm like, the young lady I was with, she's like, she's like, don't do it. Like, we've known each other for years. She was like, don't do it. Please don't do it. And I was like, so, of course, you just kind of suck your teeth, man, and just, So I'm getting ready to walk. So I was like, all right, man, I'm not going to stomach this. You know what I mean? I'm just going to get on out of here. So I started walking. I was like, let's get up and go. We started walking down the stairs. And something tells me, like, hey, man, just hang on a second. Just don't leave just yet, right? So we're standing there just at the top, at the midpoint of the stairs, just enough where you can see over the teams on the sideline. And sure enough, Dobbs connects with Jennings on the Hail Mary. And I just turned around and just shot the guy double birds, man, from barking at me.
Cold salute.
And, it was awesome. So then when we get outside, right, I remember, all of a sudden I remember that was 2 in a row because Tennessee had beaten Georgia the year before.
Right.
In Knoxville. And, we had our struggles with Georgia since I left school, right? So, of course, a few whiskeys, the whiskeys took over a little bit. And I was in the sea of Georgia people, and I started chanting out, hey, that's 2 in a row, right? That's 2 in a row. And so some group of guys, man, it was like some older guy. He's probably in his, like, 50s or 60s, and he's like, we still own you, and starts barking and this and that. And I just keep saying 2 in a row over and over and over and over and over. And he gets right up on me and starts barking. I was like, dude, you got one more time to bark at me, or this is going to get bad. And he, some Tennessee fans that were walking by, they're celebrating. They kind of realized who I was, and they kind of got between it and were like, hey, you don't need to do this. Like, don't do this. Don't give them the satisfaction of, like, you know what I'm saying, getting you upset. Yeah, but I always remember, like, I always remember trying to choke an old man because he would bark in my face, right? And it was just so annoying. Like I was like, of all the things that you could do as a college football fan, and I get it. Like, there's so many different, teams and, like, traditions and this and that, and I get it, man. But, like, you're a grown man, dude. Like, to be walking around barking in people's face, man. Like, that's one of those things I just cannot understand. Right. And that's why I say I understand, like, Tennessee fans can be pretty obnoxious too. So I don't, like, say too much about everybody else. But that barking, man, I just can't do it, man. Like, it's the one thing that, like, it will set me off in a heartbeat. Like, you start barking, at me from a Georgia game. It just, that's why I really don't even like going to Georgia games that much anymore, unless, I'm kind of in the space where I can kind of control my surroundings, because, like I said, that barking just drives me insane.
Right.
I'm making a bad dad joke here. So you don't like Snoop Dogg when he's like, bow wow wow, yippee yo, yippee yay. I mean, you change the radio.
A funny picture. I actually met Snoop Dogg on a couple different occasions, but I got a picture with him, man. He's an awesome dude. I actually met him when his son was being recruited. At the time, his son was a pretty decent recruit. And we actually talked Tennessee football for a little minute. I was surprised to know his Tennessee football knowledge at the time. Like, it was actually pretty cool.
Jared, what do you think about? We won't talk about Snoop Dogg long because the stories are too good today. But
yeah,
what do you think about Snoop Dogg? Like, all these grandmas falling in love with Snoop Dogg at the Olympics, and I was like, these are the same ladies that, like, grounded their kids and
Yeah.
took tapes and CDs away and said,
Yeah,
"Don't listen to that
exactly.
trash." And now they're like the biggest Snoop Dogg fans. Your
Uh,
thoughts on it? Is Snoop as cool as everyone thinks he is? Because I think he's like the coolest guy on the planet.
No, Snoop is cool, man. Snoop is cool. Like I said, I got a chance to meet him on a couple different occasions, and you know, got a chance to actually stand with him and talk to him for, you know, for a few minutes, and you know, and he's a cool dude, man. Like, you know, he's Snoop, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, what else you gonna say? He's Snoop. So you know, I think it's really cool. He's kind of like the unofficial uncle of everybody now, right? Like,
Right.
you know, he shows up everywhere. He's at different events. You know, it's funny you said that, where, you know, parents were like crazy. I remember, I'll never forget the Snoop story, right? Like when, you know, his first album came out, and everybody knows, you know, Doggy Style was the name of the album, and I'll never forget this. Is so I'm in church with my parents, right? I'm in church with my parents. Actually, my dad and stepmom at the time, my brother, my younger brother's mother, and the pastor was literally talking about, hey man, you know, we gotta stop letting our kids listen to this music and this and this and that and blah blah blah, and he brought up Snoop Dogg by name and was like, you know, we got you know, this one guy calling this. He's like, I won't even say it in church. You know what I mean? The name of the album.
Snoop Doggy Dog.
Oh yes, yeah. He's like, but this Snoop Doggy Dog. And I remember as soon as we got in the car after church, my dad would always let me go, take me to the mall, and I would get like something, you know, get to buy something on Sunday. You know what I mean? And my dad takes me to the mall. We all go to the mall, and I was like, yo, can we go to the record store? Because I'm a big music person.
Mm-hmm.
And we go to the record store, and he was like, all right, man, you can get you a couple CDs. And the first one I picked was Doggy Style. Right? The first one I grabbed. And he's like, and my stepmom was like, didn't the pastor just talk about that? I was like, yeah, I don't care. Give me my $20 so I can buy the CD. Right? So that was a pretty interesting conversation going home.
Hey, Gerald, you got a shout out from one of Alabama's running backs.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
LaRon McClain.
LaRon McClain. Hey, man, that's the dude right there, brother. That is a dude, man. He was awesome.
He said, Riggs, what's up, baby?
That's what's up. What's up, my guy? Yeah, man, he was awesome, dude. Like I remember him because he was like a throwback, man. He could play tailback, he could play fullback. And he would blow guys up, man. Like, he was a dude. And then, of course, when he played with the Ravens, man, he was a dude too. So that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Good to hear from you, bro.
Hey, Gerald, before we move on from Snoop Dogg, I got to ask this question. Does Snoop always smell like weed?
Okay, so I'm probably going to get myself in trouble here with this one, right?
Because I've never met him, but every time I look at it, I was like, I bet you Snoop smells like weed all the time.
I mean, what do you think we were having a conversation over?
Right.
I'll just leave it at that, man. We had a great we had a nice, stimulating, uplifting conversation.
All right.
So, Gerald, I do want to ask you about the 2005 season, because the preseason, the preseason, you were named as a Heisman Trophy candidate. Gerald, going into that season, how much pressure does that put on a player, and how much pressure did it put on you to be named a preseason Heisman Trophy candidate?
I'll be honest, man. There really wasn't any pressure for me. I you know, yes, on my list of things that I wanted to accomplish in college, I did want to win a Heisman. That was, you know, high on the list. But the biggest thing was I wanted to win a national championship, and you know, I you know, unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. But it wasn't a thing that I really, you know, thought about. You know what I mean? Like, I learned very early in my career, really in high school, you know, accolades are not what should drive you. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think all of us are competitors. I know all of us that play this game are competitors, and we want to be acknowledged for what we do. But at the same time, you have a bigger responsibility to go out there and be the best version of yourself for your team. And if your team has success, then those things will come, right? So the team's success needs to be first. And so I honestly didn't really think about it, man. It was just, going out and trying to just play the best I could week in and week out. And if we handled our business, those things would take care of itself. So I didn't really think about that very, very much.
So, Gerald, the Alabama game in 2005, you had a season-ending leg injury. How did that happen, and how difficult was it realizing that your college career was over?
It was tough, man. I will say this. That was probably, at that point in my life, that was the toughest thing that I had really, from an athletic standpoint.
Right.
That was the toughest thing that I went through. And if I'm going to be honest, man, personally too, because, you got to see exactly how the world is, the real world is, in terms of how people, how superficial a lot of people are, right? A lot of people that were in my corner, that were supported, that act like they were supporters and act like they were good friends and whatnot. Once I got hurt, and you didn't see those people anymore. You know what I mean? And so it taught me. I went through a crash course on, what's real versus what's fake, right? From a personal standpoint. But how that happened was, and LeRon, he would remember this in that game. That game was, it pretty much stayed within, 30 yards, right? Like nobody could move the ball.
Right.
Defenses were playing lights out. You know what I mean? They had an amazing defense. They had Roach, they had D'Amico, they had, they just had dudes, man, on that defense, man, and so did we. So, like I said, nobody could really move the ball. And then I just remember that entire game. I was also dealing with a rib injury, right? Like I had a separated rib. So like, every so often, how your ribs just flip over, right? Yeah. And you feel it and it take your breath away. So I was dealing with that. And I was just like, okay, man, let's, you ain't got no choice, man. You got to get out here and you got to fight. You got to grit this one out.
Right.
So I just remember, man, hey, the way that they were playing on our offense and the way that they were, getting after everything, man, we're just going to have to keep sticking up in there, man. Keep trying to, keep fighting, keep, 3-4 yards in a cloud of dust type of game. And I remember I finally broke one, right? Like I was like, okay, if you just keep, stay honest, stay with it, you know what I mean? Like eventually it will pop, right? So I finally popped one. Probably, I think we're, probably 50 yards out, 60 yards out, maybe something like that. And I'm in a basically a dead race with Tim Castile. Mm-hmm. And he realizes he's going to lose the race. And so he jumps and horse collars me from behind, which they put in the rule the next year that it was illegal. Of course, right? So he horse collars me, pretty much did the same thing T.O. did against Dallas that year they went to the Super Bowl. I tore every ligament in my ankle, broke my leg halfway up just simply from it. I remember I felt the pop when I was going down. So I was like, okay, this isn't bad. I was like, this isn't good. But I had high ankle sprains and, dealt with some of that stuff before. So I was like, all right, hey, just like any other time, I'm going to shake this one off. So I immediately, when I hit the ground, like I was trying to get up, and Dr. James Andrews, who's world renowned, we actually had a great relationship because he was my dad's team doctor when he was playing. So we knew each other already. He was at the game because he's Alabama's team doctor. And I remember getting up, and as soon as I tried to get up and walk, it felt like someone took a blowtorch to my leg, right? It's like every nerve was severed. So like, I don't know if you've ever dealt with that or anybody that's ever dealt with that, but it just feels like somebody took a blowtorch to your leg, man. Right. And so I remember going just right. I mean, I took like 2 steps and I just went right back down. And so when I'm laying down there on my back, I was like, yeah, this is over. I was like, this is over. And I just remember coming to that realization and coming to that, that place where you're like, all right, you just have to accept it, right? It's like, I couldn't imagine what anybody goes through on a true battlefield, but I mean, I guess that moment of accepting, like, hey, this is over, like, you know what I'm saying, or we're defeated. Like, I feel like I guess that would feel like that's what it was in that moment, because I just knew, right? And when the doctor, when everybody started coming over and standing over me, I was just like, yeah, my career's over with here. At least, at Tennessee, it's done. So, and I just remember Dr. Andrews, he was like, man, when he finally, because what ended up happening was they put me on a plane. I had to deal with Dr. Andrews there. I get on the plane on the way back, and then they kind of worked with each other from his medical team and Tennessee's medical team kind of worked with each other from afar on it, because he was my literal doctor, right? Like in terms of just my whole life, in terms of just what looking at. Taking care of my body and whatnot. And I just remember him saying, like, the best thing about you was the worst thing you could have ever done. And he said, if you would have never got up and tried to walk, you'd have been fine. He said, you might have been okay. He said, but he said, you trying to get up and walk, because when your ankle, your 2 leg bones in your ankle, when you walk, they spread. So that spreading finished off anything that would have been, anything that would have been savable.
Right.
I'm guessing you feel like you were part of the rule, the horse collar rule.
I absolutely was. Absolutely was. I know for a fact I was, because, that when they did a video about showing, because every year they send out a video to every team going over the rules. And then, we're good. The next year, when guys were telling me, hey, they was like, hey, man, you need the video. And I was like, yeah, thanks. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I know for a fact that I was part of the reason why that rule was implemented. Because it totally devastated me. And the worst part about it was, like I said, Dr. Andrews was like, the best thing about you was probably the worst thing about it was because my bone structure was so dense. He was like, it should have shattered my leg. But because my bone structure was so dense that all the energy from Tim Castile coming down on it from a horse collar position, all the energy started down low, went up my leg, put a small fracture in my leg, just a little small one. You could barely see it on film, but it was there. And then all that energy went back down to my ankle and just basically blew it up. So, that was that was not a fun day nor a fun flight back to Knoxville.
I'm guessing Dr. James Andrews is nothing like Snoop Dogg, and he doesn't smell like weed.
No, he's not. He's now don't get me wrong, Doc is he's an interesting dude in himself, man. But no, he doesn't smell like
Tell us about him real quick.
I mean, when you see him, man, he's just, he's been around for so long, and he's met so many people from across the whole bunch of sport. He's just a great dude, man. He's got like a really cool personality. You know what I'm saying? Like, most doctors are kind of, hey, all right, here's, what's going on. Like, no, you sit there and have a conversation with him, man. Like, you have a good conversation with him. My mom would sit down and then have a good conversation with him, man. He was just, he was a great guy to talk to. Obviously, he made you feel at ease with what was going to go on based on, what your situation was. But no, he was an awesome dude, man. He was an awesome dude. I'm extremely thankful that he was, that I was able to, deal with him, because, like I said, he saved my career in a sense. Things weren't very eventful after that. You know what I mean? I was, I got my opportunities and whatnot, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. But, I wouldn't have had a chance to do anything if it hadn't been for, what James Andrews did, and what some of the staff, what the staff did, back in Knoxville too, just kind of helping me out. Keith Clement and Jace McVeigh, those guys, man, they were great.
Right.
But like I said, Dr. Andrews, they did my surgery. So they were awesome, man.
So, Gerald, after college in 2007, you were acquired by the Chicago Bears, and during that summer, you were assigned to play for the Rhein Fire, which is NFL Europe over in Germany. We
Mhm.
have not had an individual that has played over in Germany, so please explain to us what that was like of playing your NFL or starting your NFL career playing in Germany.
So like I said, I was with the Dolphins for a little bit, and then got with the Bears, and I was still kind of trying to fight my way back injury wise.
Right.
So that was my first opportunity to really get on the field and kind of test out everything and see where I was. It was a cool experience, man. I would say, getting to travel abroad, and I was always a history buff, man. So history was my favorite subject, one of my favorite subjects in school. So it was really cool, man, just to go over. I'll be honest, man. I was more cued in on the history around me and the scenery, and um, it was really cool because where we stayed in the city of Dusseldorf, which was one of the only cities that wasn't touched by World War II. So it had all the original architecture, it had the original streets, it had everything, right? So it was really cool, man. It was a really cool place to be. Really, experience the camaraderie was great, right? If you know what I mean. So it was a great time, man. Like, I really enjoyed it. The football part of it was what it was. The team wasn't that great that I was on, so that sucked. And that was kind of the first time I had ever really been on a losing team, I guess. So it was kind of like, the hell. But the coach we had, I don't even remember when he was a jerk, but outside of that, man, like, it was a great time, man. Like, I was over there with a couple of my buddies. My Florida State buddy was over there, PK Sam. You know what I mean? We were on the same team together, so got to hear a lot of good Florida State stories, and met some good friends over there. Met some guys that I still talk to. So, like I said, man, it was good. It was a great time, man. I enjoyed it.
How was the food in Germany?
All right, so so being a Southern boy, man, you know what I'm saying? Food is everything, right? Like,
Yes.
like a lot of business gets done over good food, right? So it was all good until I ordered a cheeseburger. There's a couple of things. I ordered a cheeseburger, and I was like, hey, man, can I get some ketchup? You know what I'm saying? And they gave me this stuff that was like tomato and sweet and sour sauce mixed. I was like, what the hell is this, right? Like, this isn't ketchup. And they were like, well, that's what we call ketchup. You know what I mean? I was like, all right, ketchup was horrible. And then they had a Cologne, right? Cologne had a soccer team, and we went and did the whole, got to get the VIP treatment at the soccer game and stuff like that. And I remember we're in the hospitality booth, and of course you're gonna grab in on what's up the table. And I saw this, it looked like chicken thighs, right? It looks like, or chicken, chicken quarters, right? Like, you had quarters. And I'm always kind of like, hey, this doesn't look like, it looks like chicken, but, so I opened it up, looked to smell it, and took it to bite of it. And I was like, this is kind of gamey, right? And they're like, yeah, that's horse. And I was like, oh, shit, no.
From stable to table, baby.
Yeah, man, that totally threw me off, man. So I was like, luckily I met a couple Army brats over there, couple Army brats, some girls that were kind of hanging out, you know what I mean? And they knew how to cook American food, so I spent a lot of time with them.
Not too many German restaurants here in America. That's all I have to say.
No, there's not very many of them. You got to really look for them.
So, Gerald, how long were you in Germany?
So we were there, 4 months?
Okay.
Yeah, 4 months.
Okay.
So we got to travel, right? So, like, you had teams in what's that? Like I said, you had Dusseldorf, which was where Rhein Fire was.
Mhm.
Then you had Amsterdam, right? Yeah, Amsterdam Admirals. Then you had Berlin. You had Cologne. You had Cologne. Oh man, what else? Like I said, you had, it was spread out, all throughout Germany. So we got to travel a lot. You know what I mean? So it was really fun. Like, I remember they gave the worst thing they could ever do was our Amsterdam game was followed by an off week. So we stayed in Amsterdam for like 4 or 5 days, right? Like we just hung out there for like 4 or 5 days and went to the Heineken Museum and did all that crazy stuff, right? Like, took a little boat ride through, through the city, right, on the water, because, the river runs through the city. And, anybody who's been to Amsterdam knows about the banana bar. So, we'll just leave it at that. But that place is awesome. So, it was just a great time, man. Like I said, we enjoyed ourselves. But I'd say about 4 months we were there.
Gerald, I've got 2 questions left for you. This has been wonderful. The first one, in May of 2011, you signed with the Toronto Aeronauts. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah, the Argonauts.
Argonauts, okay.
Yep.
And in 2012, you won a championship, the Grey Cup, with Toronto.
Mhm.
With all of the setbacks due to your knee injury, how satisfying was it for you to finally win a championship of the Grey Cup there with Toronto?
Let me say this. Now try not to get emotional with this one, but to be able to battle back mentally and physically,
Mm-hmm.
And through a lot of stuff that I went through that, I don't really talk about because, at the end of the day, hey man, you know how it is. Nobody wants the labor pains, man. Just give me the baby, right? So, nobody really cares about what you go through, really. Especially, when you're talking about how people look at professional athletes and things like that. They're like, hey man, you got the world at your shoulders. You got the world in front of you. How can you be upset? But there was just a lot of stuff, man, that I went through, kind of written off in my career, had honestly, my NFL career really was derailed by, some things being put out there that weren't true. And I had to deal with, you see how they do it now. You see how some people have done with like guys like Shadur Sanders and some other things. That stuff isn't new, right? Like there's people out there, man, that put out, and it's sometimes your own coaches. You know what I mean? That you're like, dude, how could you tell that lie in that story? You know what I mean? Like that totally screwed up my career. But having to go through stuff like that, man, and kind of the way it happened and how I ended up in Toronto. I remember I was going through a really deep, dark, bad depression, and I was like 265 pounds, man. Like I was like just, in a bad space.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll never forget. And I'm pretty sure if you know anything, if you're connected, Southern football, a guy named Cos DiMatteo played at UTC, coaches at Baylor High School now.
Right.
He was a receivers coach at Toronto at the time. And I'll never forget, we were in Dick's Sporting Goods because I was like, all right, nothing I wear fits me anymore, because I was like, all right, I'm going to get myself back in shape. I'm going to stop feeling sorry for myself and get myself back in shape and try to figure out what's next. Or at least from a life standpoint. I wasn't even thinking about football. Honestly, football was like the last thing on my mind at the time.
Right.
And so I'm walking through Dick's Sporting Goods, and Kaz is walking through there, and he sees me. He's like, Gerald, and I was like, Kaz. He was like, what's up, man? And, we kind of shot the bull for a minute, and he was like, well, what are you doing now? And I was like, nothing, just nothing. You know what I mean? Kind of, how that answer goes. And he was like, well, man, do you want to play football again? I was like, to be honest with you, Kaz, man, I got such a bad taste in my mouth. I don't know if I really do or not.
Right.
And I was really in that place where I was just kind of like, I don't even want to look at football. I didn't watch football. I didn't talk football. I didn't do anything football. I was just kind of, I was so jaded by everything that I kind of went through, that I just really wanted nothing to do with it. And he was like, man, don't even answer. He was like, look, if you want to play football, get yourself in shape. I'll be back here in May. And we'll talk about it then. If you're in shape when I come back in May, then, we can have a conversation if you want to play. He said, but it's up to you. Here's my number and all that jazz. So I remember I finished buying what I needed and went back home, and my girlfriend at the time, we talked about it, and she was like, hey, this is she's like, you should do it. You know what I mean? Like, this is a really, she's like, you should do it. This is an opportunity for you. Is the opportunity that you want and that you deserve? No, but it's the opportunity you got. And, you can have a chance to kind of go out on your own terms, so to speak, if you want to.
Right.
And so, I sat and stewed over it for about 24 hours and then decided to get up. So this was in late November. So from late November to May, like I dropped back down to like, I started doing my rehab, and this is where it kind of got me into the space that I'm in now with doing training, because, I really didn't want to be involved with anybody. I really didn't want anybody to know what I was doing. I really didn't want to talk to anybody. So I started learning, on my own. Like, I started taking classes and learning on my own so I could learn how to train myself, learn how to, learn how to diet the right way, learn how to do everything, pretty much on my own. Because I just wanted to be, kind of, my own process, right? Like, I wanted to test myself, just as a man, right? And just as, going forward, like, what kind of person would I be in life after this, right? So I wanted to just test. I wanted to do it all on my own. And so I went from November till May. I went from 265 back down to like 212. Was running like I ran like a 4.41 at the when Kaz came to work me out. I ran like a 4.41 that day, and they were all like, "What the hell, man? Like, you're still sitting at home? Like, you're not playing for anybody?" And I was like, "Man, don't ask me no questions. It's a long story. Just, what you gonna do? What are we gonna do here?" So Kaz was like, "Hey, man, all right, so we're gonna put you on a plane. You're gonna come and do mini camp," which they used to hold mini camp for CFL in Tampa, because most of the American players, and then it was kind of a vacation for Canadian guys, right? So, they come down to Tampa, and I remember going down there to that camp, and I absolutely destroyed that camp, and to the point to where they were like, at the end of the camp, because guys weren't signed yet. They were just kind of like signed for the week. You know what I mean? Like, you got paid to be there for camp, and then, they would let you know if they wanted to sign a contract with you. And they, at the end of that camp, they brought everybody together. Like, hey, man, we'll get back to you guys about, what we're going to do with your contract wise. We'll call your agent. I was representing myself. I didn't have an agent or anything at that time. So, I was like, hey, well, if you're going to call me, fine. So it took like maybe 2 hours to get done with the practice, from the time we got done with practice to get to the airport and get on my flight. And I had done so well at camp that by the time I landed back in Atlanta, I had like 4 emails and like 10 missed calls, right? And they were like, "Yo, answer the phone." So they were like, so I get this, Kaz is on the voicemail, like, "Hey, man, answer the damn phone." I was like, "I'm on my flight. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I can't answer the phone on the flight." So I got the first email. They had sent the contract, right? And then within like 20 minutes, I guess because I didn't answer, they panicked. So they sent a better contract. And then within another 20 minutes, I didn't answer. So they sent a third better contract, which was for like 3 years. And like, for them was, CFL doesn't make NFL money, but for the CFL standards, it was crazy money. Right. So they were like, you know, and then when I finally landed, I was like, yo, man, I've been on the flight. They were like, oh, we just thought you weren't like, you didn't like it. You didn't want to answer this. So what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I'll take the 3-year deal. You know what I mean? And that was the end of it, man. That was the end of it. Was there for 2 years. And then that 3rd year, they changed regimes, new GM, new head coach. They felt like they were going in a different direction, but we had just came off a championship. And quite honestly, I was bored. So I was like, hey, man, y'all can have it. It's cool. You know, I was like, I enjoyed my time in Canada. You know, played with some great players, met some great people.
Right.
My daughter's mother's from Canada, so you know, it was a great time, obviously. But you know, that was the way things finished up, man. And I have no regrets about it, no complaints about it. I learned a lot about myself in those years, and just kind of what I'm about, and just how to persevere, man. So I try to share all those stories with my players, the guys that I coach, the guys that I train, you know, people I get a chance to speak to, man. I just share those stories of perseverance and how to really go out there and go get it for yourself, man. If you really want it, if you want it bad enough, you'll figure out how to do it. And so
Gerald,
that's
great.
kind of one of those things
phenomenal.
that I do with a lot of my players, and just sharing those stories. And I'm just thankful that I have that opportunity to tell that story.
Right.
I'm very grateful that you shared that story as well. That is a great story. Good for you. I wanted to ask you real quick, and I've got 4 more questions. I'll let Stephen get to his last one.
Yeah. Take your time, man.
I'll
I'm wide open in the morning, man.
Okay.
My mornings are wide open, so take your
But
time.
I got I'm thinking about taking the family to Toronto this summer. Where should I take them, and where should we eat?
Oh man, dude! Now here's the thing about Toronto, dude. There's so much great food everywhere. Like if you're in the metro area, because here's the thing, Toronto is like New York,
okay,
but clean. You understand? It don't smell like New York, but it's got the New York feel. You know what I mean? Shout out to my New York people, though. I got a lot of people in New York that I love dearly. So, but no, it's a great place. It's got, you know, all kinds of different foods. You can go. Think about it, like I said. Think about it, kind of like the New York feel. But if you've been to Atlanta, you know, it's kind of got the Atlanta kind of, you know, feel to it in terms of kind of how the city is spread out. Right? You've got Mississauga. You've got, you know, different areas. I lived in Mississauga, what they call Mississauga, which is kind of like a suburb, which would have been kind of like Cobb County. You know what I mean, in terms of Atlanta. But, you know, you had all these other different places. You got Pickering, you got, you know, different places. There's just so much going on. But like I said, there's so many different places. And I don't know. I haven't been back in several years. So I don't know, you know, some of those places are still open or what's going on. But, you know, they've got, it's a great sports town too, right? So like, you know, there's always going to be a great sports bar to go to. It's a melting pot of people. So if you like, if your taste buds kind of expand a little bit and you like more than just barbecue and American stuff, you know what I mean? You're going to really enjoy it. You know, great Chinese food, great Caribbean food, like all of that stuff, man. It's a great place. It's a great place to go visit. And it's awesome, man. I really enjoyed it. Make sure you don't go during the winter though.
Oh no.
Make sure you go. Make sure you make that a summertime visit, right? Because otherwise, you're gonna deal with that snow and it's terrible. You know, and if you're not a fan of icy roads and snow and all that sort of stuff, then I would say go during the summer. But summers are great in Toronto, man, because it's like, you know, you got some water up there, so you got a little bit of, you know, it's kind of like got that New York, New Jersey feel. You know what I mean? Like when you go. You know what I'm saying? And it's really, and they got the Caravana Festival, you know, during the summertime, where it's the Caribbean Festival, where you got, you know, they do the whole dress up thing. They got the parades and this and that and that. So it's a great place to be, man. It's awesome. Like I said, I really enjoyed it.
So, Gerald, my final question for you is simply, what is your favorite Phillip Fulmer story that you enjoy telling that usually gets a lot of laughs, please?
Oh, man.
Or the one where you couldn't stand him and it gets a lot of laughs. Either or.
What's that again?
Or the one where you can't stand him and you throw him under the bus and it gets a lot of laughs. Either or.
Oh, man. So try to think, man, what's a good one I could tell? It won't get me in too much trouble.
Trouble's okay.
Well, I'm about to say I still got to be around these people, so
Right.
We're not watching.
Phil's awesome now, man. Like he'd probably laugh it off. Oh man. All right, so I'm trying to be careful about this one, but it's a great story. People always laugh when I tell it. I usually tell it after a few drinks, and then when I'm around people I'm normally closer to. But so my first year, I get there, and it's like, in the summertime, you get there, your parents drop you off, you get your room set up, get all this sort of stuff.
Right.
So I'm gonna leave names out of this one, but it kind of gives you, I guess people would feel kind of, I don't know how people feel about it, but it's a good story to me, so I'll tell it. So I get there, and this particular weekend, like I said, I'm moving in, but a few of the guys were like acting squirrely, right? Like everybody's like, in their rooms, like kind of hiding and this and that. Well, apparently a few of them got a hold of the wrong woman, and they're pretty sure you can understand what I'm saying with that. So they weren't feeling all too hot. So
penicillin shots follow.
Yeah. A lot of those were getting passed around. That was getting passed around like like party favors, and so. But it happened under some crazy circumstances. Let's just put it that way. And so it got back to Coach Fulmer. There was a video that was destroyed. There was some other stuff that, went on. So Coach Fulmer pulls everybody into the office, right? And into the meeting room. And there were some things that were said during what happened, and then Coach Fulmer repeating them. So it was like the funny part was hearing this man like competing and trying to ask questions. So we get in and we sitting in there, and of course, like us freshmen, in the O2 class, like we hadn't been there even 48 hours yet.
Right.
So, or some of us, you know what I mean? Like some, the most of us had just gotten there. We were just there. It hadn't been 48 hours. So we're sitting in the meeting room, and Coach Fulmer said, "Hey, if all the women get out." Right. And so, close the doors behind you. So we're all sitting in there, and Coach Fulmer just immediately goes in, "What the hell are you guys thinking?" Like, just like, I want to know, what the hell were you thinking? He's like, "I don't care if she wants to take on the whole damn football team. You just don't do it. Like, it's stupid. Like, why would you do that? Like, that's stupid." And he was like, "Whose bright idea was the video?" And then I hear somebody was on the phone talking about, "We got a live one in Gibbs." What the hell does the live one mean anyway? And I absolutely lost it. And just started cracking up laughing. And he looks back there. He's like, "I don't see shit funny. As a matter of fact, get out. Get the hell out." Right? So I get kicked out of a meeting like my first 48 hours there because I'm laughing about something that, pretty serious, I guess, at the time. But I just thought it was hilarious, just the way he was talking about it. And it was like it was one of those like welcome to college one, because it was a total teaching moment, right? Like, hey, don't do this, right? These are things that you don't do. You definitely don't laugh at your head coach when he's trying to be serious about something,
Right.
And it was just kind of one of those moments where it was funny, and you saw, you saw the father figure in him come out in that moment, right? Because he was like, God. That was stupid. Like, what are you guys thinking? You know what I'm saying? And it was just, it was just the inflection in his voice. And then you see him, he's standing up there in front of everybody. And then you're like, this is the first conversation that I'm really having as a team. You know what I mean? When I got to school, and it was one of those funny moments where you really had to be there to really get it. But it was just, it was just knowing, like, once you got to know him and know that, he doesn't really yell. He's not much of a yeller. It's more or less his voice gets high, right? And so it's really funny watching this big guy up there with this high voice. He's upset, and of course, he literally looks like a dog on thermometer, like turning red. You know what I mean? It's like literally just going up, and looks like his head's about to pop. It was funny, man. Like he'd always have these like he'd always have these, I guess kind of dad joke-esque like one-liners that would just kind of like, sometimes they would be funny, and then other times you're like, man, get your ass out of here. Like, you know, like go over there and watch the offensive line, man. Like, go do that. Go do something
Right.
else. I do remember, you know, that coaching staff was highly competitive too, right? Like because you had Chief on the other side.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Chief was like, you know, this was kind of the really thing that you understood about just how much power Chief had. Was one day we were doing I was on the scout team, so this was my freshman year. I'm on the scout team, and Coach Fulmer, you know, he's bouncing around practice, just kind of talking about like, you know, checking in on this, checking in on that. And he came over and said something to Chief, and Chief looked up. He's like, "You get your ass back over there. Like, you don't. This is my defense. You get your ass back over there. Like, you don't talk." And I was just like, these guys are funny, man. Like, just how they would go back and forth, how competitive they were, and just how much funny they got. But they were genuine guys, man. Like, Chief was genuine. I remember Chief tried to actually pull me over to defense. And was like, "Hey, you want to come play linebacker?" And I was like, "Man, you got Kevin Simon, you got Omar Gaither, you got Kevin Burnett." I was like, "Don't play this game with me, dude. Like, I'm not gonna play right away. Like, it's not like I was like, am I gonna start?" And he was like, "Well, you know, we got." I was like, "Nah, anything that comes after well ain't worth a shit. So, you know,
Right.
no, you know, you can have it." I was like, "I appreciate the offer, but no, I'm stay over here in offense." And that next year was the year I was in the, you know, 2004, because they were trying to pull me over there. And I was like, nah, and I knew the writing on the wall. I know how football works. You know, they were like, it hadn't gone the way that everybody wanted it to that point. You know, I had a couple of injuries or whatever, so I was slow kind of getting started, and they were kind of like, well, maybe we can make some room, you know, for the next back or two that are going to come in here. So I was like, nah, I ain't gonna make it easy on you. Like, you're gonna have to, you know, I'm gonna make you have a tough decision. So I remember after, it was really, honestly, that was really the turning point in my career. When they asked me if I wanted to play defense, I was like, man, all right, you got to do something now, because now they're starting to find ways to kind of figure out if they want to move on from you. Mm-hmm. That's how I took it, or at least that's how I took it, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, man, I went to that offseason with a vengeance, man, and worked my tail off to go out there and you know, like I said, everything worked out. That next year was 2004, and ended up going over 1,000 yards and doing all that stuff. But no, man, Fulmer was great, dude. Like, I when I look back on my time with Fulmer, there was a lot of things that we butt heads on. You know, I did feel, you know, I kind of got sold on in the recruiting department, but at the same time, I was also immature in some ways too. So, you know, my way of handling things wasn't always the greatest. So we butted heads in a lot of situations. But when I look back on it, you know, I'm extremely thankful for my time with Phil, man. Phil was great. Phil, you know, there's a lot of lessons. And even in the way that I coach now, you know what I mean, as a high school coach. And I find myself sometimes like, I can't believe you just said that. But, like, you know, I'll say things that Fulmer, you know, echo things that Fulmer would say. In some of the ways that I coach. So, like I said, I you know, he's definitely left an impression, and like I said, he was great, man. I look back on my time with him, and I'm definitely appreciative, you know, for the time that I had.
Gerald, this just popped into my head, and I do want to get your take on it. You seem to be really engulfed with Tennessee football. How close do you think Josh Heupel is to getting Tennessee back to the SEC championship game and winning a national title?
If you would have asked me this question this time last year, I would have probably had a better answer. You know, and they'll probably limit my access after this, but you know, I think we took a step back this year.
Yes.
And you know, I was really looking forward to. I mean, because if you think about it, I'll never forget. What's the inside linebackers coach's name? That I think he just left. He was the inside linebackers coach, and we were having a camp. They were doing a 7-on-7 camp prior to the 2022 season, and I was out there with some of the guys that I work with, and so he flat out asked me, he was like, man, what do you think about Josh? And I was like, he flat out asked me as a coach, like, hey, what do you think about the program as a former player? And I was like, well, I'll be honest, man. Like when Josh first came in, I was not sold, right? Because we had been through a lot, so of course I wasn't going to take anything, and say, well, hey, stamp that guy, right? Like we got the guy we want. No, you're gonna have to go out there and prove it. And I just wasn't a fan. I had seen what his offense had done previous, and I just wasn't a fan. And I'll be honest, and I'm circling all this back to now. I'm still, 22 was a great year, right?
Yes.
Like from the standpoint of what we were able to accomplish offensively, I think it was very different to what everybody else was doing across the country. So it made it really hard for teams to game plan for us. And we had the horses, in terms of, guys that could really blow the top off coverage. We had good running backs. We had a serviceable offensive line, a defense that was pretty active, that was playing well that year. So I think 22 was one of those years where it really, it was really I don't want to use that term, but it was a mind screw, right? Because it was like you saw what Tennessee was capable of, you know what I mean? And having that year going 11-1, or what is it, 11-2, whatever it was.
Right.
You dropped that crazy one to South Carolina, which I was at that game, and it was like that was the weirdest game I'd ever been to in my lifetime, just because of how it went. It was like that was not supposed to happen, but you saw a lot of good things, and then the last couple of years, it just seems like we've kind of regressed a little bit. And I don't think it's that because they all of a sudden forgot how to coach football. I think it's just, when you look at things the way that I do in terms of, and a lot of people, and a lot of, other guys that I talk to, I kind of feel the same way, is, the SEC is a different monster in itself. Like you have to be able to, you got to score points. You got to be able to play defense, obviously, but you got to have the right guys. And not to say that, the guys that we had haven't been, great. We've had some guys that have played some hellacious football. But the one thing that, has bothered me the last couple of years is when you look, take, for example, when we're out there on the field against Georgia. And I remember a time where, when I was in school and previous to when I was in school and shortly after, where you look out there, we're the biggest team on the field.
Right.
Right. We make other teams look like little kids, and they got big guys. That's not the case anymore. Right. Like standing on the field watching the Georgia-Tennessee game, and Georgia's D line's up here and Tennessee's offensive line's down here. You ain't gonna get it done, man. That's not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. You've got to have the size to match the athleticism, and you've got to have the killer instinct, the kind of physical, the just brutal physical mentality, which is my biggest complaint because of what we do on offense.
Right.
I think it kind of sets the and some people may disagree. Some people look at it differently. Everybody's got their own philosophy about football. I feel like your offense sets the tone for who you are, because if your offense is big offensive line, physical guys up front, and they're pushing the defense around, then your defense is going to be ready for whatever anybody throws at them on Saturday, right? We're not a push you around type of team.
Right.
And so when we go out there and we play the Bamas, the Georgias, the Texas, I mean, those teams are lining up to beat you up.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're going to do some different schemes and stuff, but at the end of the day, man, their core is they're going to beat you up front, move the football, and they're going to stop the run on defense.
Right.
And so, and our offense just doesn't present that right now, right? Like it does. That's just not who we are. We're not a physical team that's just going to go out there and road grade you and can, grind out a 12, 13, 14, 15 play drive. Like that's just not who we are.
Right.
And I think that has not served us well when it comes to time to play the Georgias, the Ohio States, the Alabamas, now we beat Bama, whatever, right. But at the same time, they've had their issues with Saban leaving. I think they're kind of seeing the same thing, right? Because you have, a mindset, and you have a coach, pretty much teams take on the identity of their coach, right? So if you have a coach that, is just, and that was the way Fulmer was, right? Like Fulmer was like, hey man, if nothing else, we're gonna win the fight now. You know what I mean? We're gonna go out there and we're gonna physically dominate you. You know what I mean? For 60 minutes, and then some if we have to. And I just don't see that in what we've done in the last couple of years, and I think that has not served us well when it goes time to playing into some of those bigger games. We're just not physical enough. We're just not physical enough, and so I know that they've, that's been something that's been brought up, and hopefully we get it addressed. I think Josh is a great coach. I think he does have. He's a former guy. He's a lifer, right? So he understands what it takes to win. I mean, it's not like he doesn't know, but at the same time, I think, if I was in his ear, if I was close to him, I would say, hey man, and I'm pretty sure other people have said it, we've just got to find a way to get bigger guys, and we've got to find a way to be more physical, because that's how we're going to win, especially the way the schedule is set up now, late in the season. You've got to be able to win those physical battles late in the season. Right. Winning them early in the season, that's great, right? Because everybody's fresh. Everybody, it's a new season. Everybody's, but it's a war of attrition, man. That schedule is a war of attrition. And now with the playoffs, it's even worse, right? It's like an NFL schedule. It's like a pro schedule. You got to be able to win that war of attrition and be able to still be physical, still be dominant, still be able to go out there and get a first down when you need a first down, get a stop when you need to get a stop, whip the guy in front of you. It's still football at the end of the day, right? And so and SEC football is the same. It's physical, man. And if you don't win the physical battles up front, man, it's really hard for you to win. And we just haven't done that lately. So I think that's kind of where we are right now. And I think I would like to believe they'll get it fixed. You know what I mean? I think they'll address, because he like I said, I do believe he's a good coach. Good coaches, self-evaluate and address their issues, and then you move on. And I think he's going to do that. This year should be pretty. The next couple of years should be interesting just to see kind of how they turn that tide, because I think they have enough. I think they have enough film now to see that kind of like, okay, hey man, we need to make some changes, and so it's going to be interesting to see kind of how they address those changes over the next couple of years.
Gerald, we do have one comment about you down here, and someone said Gerald should write a book on your career.
I've been approached about that a couple times. I just, I'll be honest, man. Like, it's hard for me to really. It's been hard for me to kind of come to grips with writing a book about some of that stuff, because again, there are a lot of things that happen, man, that I will take responsibility for, but then at the same time, there are a lot of things that happen, more things that happen that were not self-inflicted, right? And so, talking about some of that stuff, to me, it sounds I've never been one to care about how people think about me, but at the same time, if you're going to put yourself out there like that, then like there's going to be things that happen. And I have kids now, man. You know what I mean? And I just don't, there's things that I know that if I tell my story, hold on, guys.
Okay.
Hold on. Somebody called. Give me just 1 second. I'm gonna get back to you. Here we go. So, if you're going to tell that story, I have to tell that story, tell those parts of the story. And I'm just not sure if I want to subject, my children to that. I've tried to separate my football career from my family life now. And so, I mean, it would probably be something I maybe do one day. I don't know if there's enough of a audience for it, maybe. But I just, like I said, it's one of those things that, I have my stories. I have the things that I went through, and it's just kind of personal. You know what I mean? I've never been. I'm out there in some ways, because I have a business, and I try to connect with fans and people, and I enjoy, doing the banter back and forth with fans from time to time. But that's a little too personal for my taste sometimes. You know what I mean? To do a book. So I don't know. Maybe one day. I don't know. Maybe somebody might convince me to one day.
I'll say this, Gerald, about books. If you hold back, they don't sell.
Well, that's true.
If you open up,
That's true.
And let it all out. People love them. Yeah, I was sending a message yesterday to a musician because he was in the middle of everything, and he put something out there, and he responded, and so I just said it was like, you should just write a book because people trust you the most, and but you can't hold back.
Right.
And so many people were jumping on that comment and agreeing with me. One thing I wanted to ask you, there's several things I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, sure.
But you mentioned about Coach Fulmer and how you're coaching like him. Do you remember Sam Weish, that head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals during the Boomer Esiason years?
Yeah.
All right, Sam Weish and Jerry Glanville could not stand each other.
I think Jerry had that problem with a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. That's where my question is going. But you can Google Sam Weish, Jerry Glanville, and there's some hilarious comments because
there was one that I'm trying to remember. There was one that was really bad or something. Didn't
he ran the score up on Glanville every time they played.
Yeah, that's what it was.
He called a timeout with like 9 seconds left to kick a field goal on third down.
Yeah,
and they're already up by like 41. He really stuck it to Jerry Glanville. With that being said, Deion Sanders played for Jerry Glanville. And I just noticed this back when I saw Sam Weish quote talking about Jerry Glanville, and it hit me. Jerry Glanville always wore a cowboy hat and sunglasses.
Yep.
Deion is always wearing a cowboy hat and sunglasses.
Right.
And Jerry Glanville always got knocked that he really doesn't know what he's doing. His teams aren't in tune with fundamentals. Deion, you're not really in tune. Your team's not really having fundamentals. Jerry won. Deion has won. They kind of went on talent, but they're both showmen.
Right.
Do you think that Deion is today's Jerry Glanville? Because
I wouldn't go as far as to say he's today's Jerry Glanville. Jerry was an interesting dude, man. Like, like I said, being an Atlanta kid, kind of watching from afar, and then of course, with my connection to, former players and my dad and guys that he knows and things like that played for Glanville and that were around. I've heard a lot of different things, you know what I'm saying? So like Glanville's and I actually got a chance to meet Jerry Glanville and like sit down in a meeting room and talk with him. And, and he was older at this point. So, you could still see the same fire in him, but he just, it wasn't that guy. But he still walked around every day with cowboy hat and sunglasses, even when I met him, whatever. But I don't know if Deion is that. I think Deion, now I will say this, right? If I'm being honest, Deion doesn't do himself any favors, right? By the way in which, but again, if you know Deion and you've watched Deion his entire career, Deion is true to who he is, right?
Yes,
so it's not, so, and that's what you have to respect, right? Like, he's true to who he is, and he's not going to be anything different. He's going to do things the way that he feels the way they should be done. And, when he wins, you're going to hear about it. When you lose, you're going to hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just that comes with the territory, man. When you're a guy that talks and you're a guy that's brash and does things that most people can't do, and and it is shy about it, people are going to have a lot to say about it. So I don't think, but I don't think he's today's Jerry Glanville as much as I think the biggest thing with Deion is he's very much still an old school type of guy.
Mm-hmm.
When it boils down to, how he does things, but at the same time. And in my coaching career, as I'm trying to move up in the coaching career and things that I watch, because I try to learn more by watching now as opposed to, maybe if I can learn some lessons before I get into this situation or how I do it. But you have to remember, when you're a special type of player and we're a special type of player, there are things that come naturally to you that don't come naturally to 90% of the rest of the world, right? And to the guys that play the game. So I have to remember, even with myself sometimes, like when I'm coaching, at the high school level, and I think back to the things I was able to do in high school, like I'm looking at this kid and I'm like, why can't and I'm like, wait a minute, man, you can't think like that. Right. Like they're not you. They don't think like you. They don't possess some of the things that you possess. They don't have, some of the experience that you had already to this point in their life that you had, or in your life that you had at this point in their life, right? So you have to, you have to take a step back and say, you know what, man, let me really get to know the kid and get to know what he's about, what his story's about, get to know him, get him to really understand that I care about him to the point to where now I can coach him in the way that I need to coach him. Whereas Dion, I think sometimes he gets, I think sometimes it comes, he's like, yeah, man, why can't you do that? Or why can't you treat this like a professional? It's like, bro, Dion, everybody's not you, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? And that's just me from the outside looking in. I'm not going to sit here and criticize Dion and say he's doing it right or doing it wrong. He's doing it his way, which is, he's earned the right to do it his way. So I'm very much adamant about that. But at the same time, I think there are, just from the outside looking in, there are times where you look at Dion and you say, well, hey, man, he's very much of a mentor, and he does a great job with trying to raise men. But at the same time, I think Dion still gets caught in, that space of where it's like, he's treating it like himself. And I'm like, Dion, these kids ain't like you, man. You know what I mean? Like, you were a different monster altogether, and you got to remember that sometimes.
Right.
My quick questions to you are run blocking.
Yeah.
I got a feeling you were ahead of the curve because your dad was probably on you about it, even in high school, because the big knock was when guys get to college, big-time running backs, they don't know how to run block. And every college coach on this planet, you ain't touching that field till you learn how to run block, blah, blah, blah. So
pass blocking too, yeah.
So were you ahead of the game in run blocking when you got to Tennessee?
So I'll tell you. Let me explain it like this. So, no, I wasn't asked to run block very much. I wasn't asked to do that at all, to be honest with you, at Tennessee. But when my dad was coming out of college, he was when he was at Arizona State, played under Frank Kush, he was in a very talented running back room, right? Robert Weathers himself, they had some dudes back there. So if you wanted to get on the field, even though you were a tailback, you need to learn how to play some fullback, because otherwise you weren't going to get on the field. And so when it came to understanding blocking schemes and understanding how, blocking schemes will flow, how all these things work, my dad taught me from a standpoint of, okay, learn how to do this as a fullback, because if you can understand how to block, if you understand how to block it, then it's going to be easy when you get the ball in your hand.
Right.
So that's kind of where, when I was in high school, I'll be honest, man, when I was in high school, I was not playing 100% in terms of ability. I was just using knowledge that I had because I had somebody who played 11 years in the NFL and won a Super Bowl and went to several Pro Bowls, and, he taught me a lot. So there were things that I would do just simply because I was ahead, as you say, ahead of the curve. Like I was way ahead of the curve in high school in terms of just what I knew. And it just made the game just easy. Like I said, I wasn't even there were some games that, I would be a little bit more queued up for because it would be a little bit personal. But outside of that, on a regular basis, man, I'm playing at about 75-80% of what my ability was, simply because, hey, it's a long season. There's no reason to go out there and, put yourself in a bad situation just to show off. Use your mind, use the things that and play the game upstairs. You know what I mean? Like the game is really more mental than it is physical in the first place. So that's one of those things that a lot of people that don't really play understand, is that the game is more mental than it is physical. And you can put yourself in advantageous situations, just simply by knowing what's going on and understanding what the defense is trying to do, and understanding kind of how guys, you watch enough film, and how to read tendencies, how to pick up on different cues from different guys, and seeing different things. You kind of get a beat on what they're doing, and how they're going to react to things that you do based on what they show on film. And you can just store that stuff in like a computer, man, and then when you go out there and you see it, you react to it. And like I said, it's one of those things where, if you're really in tune and you're really locked in, mentally from that standpoint, you can go out there and just make plays just by knowing what's going to happen. You don't even have to really go out there and give 100%. because like I said, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? Like it's going to be play after play after play after play. So there's some runs where, hey, this run I might turn the jets on. This run I'm just going to feel it out. This run we're going to just kind of react and see what goes on. And so there was a lot of things that, like I said, from my dad's standpoint, that teaching me the game and then as I climb the ladder in terms of levels, you use those things and you just learn how to play the game on a different level, not just from the physical standpoint.
Looking at, and this is another X's and O's question. When you see just dominant DNs, whether that be Reggie White, Derek Thomas, Chris Jones today, whoever it might be, when there's a dominant DN, and you always hear, the former quarterbacks who are in the booth announcing, oh, you got to run at him to start the game. You got to run at him, wear him down so, you can be successful later in the second quarter and in the second half. You got to run at him and wear him down. How true is that, and how irritating is it for a back where you've got to run into the beast? You got to run into the eye of the hurricane.
So it's frustrating. Well, I mean, look, it's coming, right? And if you're playing on a physical brand of football, if you play a physical brand of football, you play on a team like that, and if you played a lot of football, like, hey, look, we're not, every play is not meant to score.
Right.
Okay. We're going to do some things just to throw out there to see how you react. Yes, we're going to try to wear you down in some ways, so we're okay with taking a 3-yard run or a 4-yard. I'm on the thing. You take a 3-yard run, you take a 2-yard run here, you take, things where, you get no gain, you have different success. So you kind of allow for that thing to happen. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So when you go out there and you're playing against some of those DNs, the biggest thing that you can do really is not so much change your game plan for that sense, but also you can do different things to offset them. You can chip them, right? Like you can chip them. You can, do some play action away and then coming back. You know what I mean? Like I said, there's different ways to wear them down. It's not always the same, but you can do different things to wear them down. So it's not all the same.
I got you. What was your welcome to the NFL moment? We heard about your SEC moment. What was your welcome to the NFL moment?
I would say, the biggest. Okay, we're playing against Carolina, and I get in, and they have this pretty special dude named Julius Peppers, right? So
yeah.
I remember they were like, "Hey, you gotta chip the end, right? You gotta chip before you get out. You gotta, And I remember I'm trying to get out from protection and get out into my route, and he gets back there and he wreaks havoc just like he always does. And the running back coach Bobby Williams at the time, he's like yelling at me. He's like, "You gotta chip him." I was like, "I did." You didn't feel it. You know what I mean? The guy's 6'7" to 300 pounds. You know what I mean? He's not gonna feel too much, for me. But I think that was kind of my moment, what I'm saying, of understanding just how special guys were, you know what I mean? Because you see talent, at every level. But the fact that you go out there and you see guys like that, man, and you realize that there's real life freaks of nature out there on the field. That was kind of a big moment for me. Was really like, man, like how does 6'7", 300 pounds move that fast, right? Like you just don't really get. I'll say, you know what, a better one would be, I was in practice and Jason Taylor was on that defense, right? And same thing as a back. Sometimes they, the line's gonna slide, and you end up getting put on a DN. So you have to decide: do you want to stand up or do you want to cut the guy? Well, it's practice, so you're not going to cut your own guy in practice, right? And so I go out there to the edge, catch JT. I mean, good collision. stand him up. Everybody's like, whoa, like, okay, wait a minute. Like, what is this? And of course, JT gets all pissed off, you know what I mean? Because he got, kind of embarrassed by a rookie and all that. And so, JT's arms were like ridiculously long, man. Like, he's 6'4", 6'5", whatever he was, arms down to the floor almost. And so I'll never forget, like, everybody's giving him hell for what just happened. And then he comes up the next play, and I come out there. They call the same play again. And I was like, y'all assholes. Like, I knew that they were going to do this because they were like, oh, yeah, the rookie got him, so we're going to see how easy does. So they call it again, and JT just puts his arms out as long as he can and, like, just reaches this way and starts pushing me straight back. And everybody's laughing, and I was like, I mean, what do you want me to do? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
the guy's arms are about as long as, like, my entire body. Like, what you want me to do? Like, there's nothing I can do. So that was a cool moment. Just, the mental battle, you know what I mean, that you have to deal with, the mental battle, because again, once you get to that level, it's not the physical part at all, right? It's the mental part of it. It's guys know what you're going to do before you do it. I remember being out there with guys like Zach Thomas and Donnie Sprague and they're calling your plays, right? You know what I mean? They're like, hey, they're running right there, or hey, you come out of your route and you do this, and they're like, you got to do something better than that, rookie, because we've seen this over and over and over again for the last 10 years. So it was really cool just having the battle of wits and the chess match that was going against veterans. You know what I mean? Learning how to play the game at that level.
What's the hardest you ever been hit?
Ooh.
Or who's one guy that you don't want to go up against because he was just always there?
Well, I'm going to never say that I would never go up against anybody because I was pretty physical myself. I enjoyed that aspect of the game. But I will say this. God rest his soul, man. Sean Taylor was probably one of the most vicious defensive players that I've ever seen on a football field.
Right.
Wow.
Sean Taylor was vicious, man. And I'll tell you, and it was just amazing when you stand back there and you look back there. You ever seen the movie Signs?
Yeah. Mel Gibson.
Yeah. So you remember when they finally see him and they're like, these big long things that just look crazy, and they're like, that's what Sean Taylor looked like back there at the safety spot. You're like, how is somebody that big, that fast, covered that much ground, is that physical, right? And he was heavy too now. Like, you know what I'm saying? They listed him at 225, but that's a bunch of crap, man. That dude had to be at least 240.
Right.
Had to be. Now, he didn't, I mean, he had the slender kind of, long muscle build, body build, but I mean, the dude was heavy now because when he would hit you,
right.
He, you felt it, right? Even if it was a glancing blow, like you felt it, you know what I mean? I'll be honest with that. I think the hardest I ever was hit at any level, we were playing that Miami game, that second Miami game down there in Coral Gables. And I don't remember it. Like, let's just put it that way.
Right.
I was running the ball, and I remember DJ Williams and Jonathan Vilma, I'm trying to like split them. And I got some good yardage. But I just remember everything went black before I hit the ground, right? And then it came right back. So I was like, and I was fine. Like, I was like, hey, I'm fine. I'm bouncing up. You know what I mean? Coaches are coming like, hey, they're waving me over to the sideline, like, come here. And I was like, what? Like, but when they say come out, you come out. You know what I mean? So you go out. And I'm standing there, and everybody's like, are you okay, man? I was like, I'm fine, dude. Like, what the hell? Like, why y'all keep asking me, am I okay? And so we were watching the film that Sunday. We get back to Knoxville. We're watching film on Sunday. And apparently, when I was going to the ground, I was trying to stumble for like a couple extra yards. It was like an 8-9 yard game, but I was trying to stumble. But apparently, DJ Williams had picked me up by my waist and like did like some WWE like twist suplex, like, and slammed me on the ground. And like, I didn't even realize that it happened. It happened so fast. and let's just say I was pretty sore that Sunday. I'll say that, right? Like but like I said, I did not know what happened at the time. And when I looked on film, it was bad. Like it was one of those where I was like, yeah, I could see why everybody was like asking me, was I okay? Because it did not look good at all.
Right.
So I would say that's probably the hardest I've ever been hit in a game. Because like I said, it did not look good at all. It was pretty bad.
Gerald, you have played football all over this world. You have played it at a high level. You've played in NFL Europe. You played in the NFL. You played in the CFL. You made a name for yourself in the SEC. You won a state championship at a school that's never done it. Hasn't done it since. Who is your Mount Rushmore of running backs?
Ooh,
who's your top 4 running backs of all time?
You got to put your dad up there, though, right?
Well, I was about to say, can we?
You put whoever. It's your list.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, like, Dad's up there, right?
Right.
But the guy that did Mount Rushmore, he put his 4 favorite presidents up there.
Yeah.
So this is your 4 favorite running backs.
LT, Fred Taylor, Fred Taylor, Adrian Peterson, and Barry.
Wow. I thought Walter would be in there.
No, I mean, look, I respect Walter for what he did, and
Right.
I respect him for, he pretty much laid the foundation for what it is to be a premier running back, but he was not better than Barry, and he's not better than I don't think he was better than LT at all. LT was a dude like
LT was special.
LT was, I mean, and you got to think, man, LT's not even that big, man. He's like 5'9". You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not that big of a guy. Barry wasn't that big of a guy, but they just did things that were unreal. And then you got a guy like Fred Taylor, who doesn't nearly get the respect he deserves as a tailback in NFL history. You got to think, this guy was hurt for a few years, and he still had over 10,000 yards. A lot of people don't realize, even though you saw and you go back into his college career, you don't even think about the Spurrier and Danny Werfel and those guys just throwing the ball around, but you don't realize Fred Taylor was eating people alive, having 150, almost 200 yards, and you didn't even realize it because you got thrown on for 400 or 500 yards too, right? So, he was great. And then, of course, we talked about Adrian Peterson earlier, man. He was just a special, I mean, that dude was just special, man. I mean, he was a peer at the time, you know what I mean? And, people that know me know that I'm not really one to, especially when I'm playing, like, I have that competitive kind of drive where I'm like, nah, man, that guy's not better than me. But let's face it, that dude was good, man. He was good. He belongs. He did some special things in his career, man, that he belongs at the top of the heap. And there's plenty of other backs, man, that I'm like, that are close on that list, right? Like Le'Veon Bell is one of my favorite guys to watch. You know what I mean? Post career, like that dude was awesome too, man. And he had a different flavor that was just kind of like something you never seen, where he barely moving and then all of a sudden he takes off. He had figured some things out. You had some other guys that were flashes in the pan that had great, Sean Green to play for the Jets. You had some other guys, man, that were just flashes, like I said, flashes in the pan that had great, little short spurt. But if you're talking about longevity, obviously those names that I mentioned are, the guys that I think about.
I forgot the stat, but there was some crazy stat like 1/3 or half of the carries Barry Sanders had were for negative yards.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I was like, oh, my dear Lord. Like, I remember watching him as a kid because I was late in grade school and I was in middle school and high school when he was playing. And so I remember his career vividly. And he was always fun to watch. Like, I didn't care about the lines. I couldn't stand the lines, but I would watch the lines just because of Barry.
Yeah.
But when I heard that stat, I was like, "Oh my dear Lord!"
That's a crazy. That's a crazy stat. And think about how many yards he had, right? And like,
I mean, he led the league in rushing almost every year.
yeah, you know what I mean. Had
and
a
like
couple,
half his carries were for negative yards.
right? Like that's craziness. Like
He was like the only guy on the lines.
Tells you how Bible tells. Well, they had what was it, Herman Moore?
Yeah, they did have Herman,
but they
Moore.
couldn't protect nobody long enough to throw it to him. So I mean, that didn't really matter. But yeah, man. I mean, he was, dude. The stuff Barry did, man. When you look back on it, was crazy. Like you just, and I think now because we've let, I'll probably get killed for this too in football circles, but we've let too many of these video game guys kind of take over,
right?
In football, and it's all about analytics and it's all about this and that. You know what I mean? Throw the ball around and this and that. Like we've gotten away from seeing true, and everybody kind of devalued the running back position.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's hard to, you're not going to see guys like, the guys like, my dad, myself, Barry, Fred, LaDainian, guys that could just tote the mail, and carry the load. You're not going to see that stuff really anymore.
Right.
So, it's when you look back on that stuff, man, and you realize that defense was also set up, it's not to say it's easy now, but let's just be honest, man. Like defense has got a lot of restrictions on them now. So,
right.
To see what some of those guys did in their careers, man, is nothing short of amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Mario,
100% with you on that.
I'm sorry, Gerald. This has been an absolute blast. We have thoroughly enjoyed the 2 times that you have joined us, once on Tuesday and the other one today. The floor is all yours for anything else that you would like to say.
No, man, just like I said, I really enjoyed myself. I appreciate you guys. Let me come on with you and share some of these stories. And, I like I said, it's always a good time to look back on some of these things and reminisce a little bit, just from my career, and then just talk about football. I'm a football guy, man. So anytime I get a chance to talk about football and talk about the history of football and give credit to guys that paved the way for some of us younger guys and for the guys that are still yet to come and stuff like that, man. I love this. I always love the opportunity to do that. So I appreciate you guys.
We had a listener, David Burgess. He left a comment. He said, "Great to hear from a great Vol for life." So
that's awesome, man. Like I said, our fans, man, our fans are the greatest, man. I really do believe that. I think when for guys that are coming out, you don't understand how valuable that is to have a solid fan base like Tennessee has. I mean, you think about, and like I said, we talked about the other day, kind of Tennessee was a business decision. I mean, it was the same thing from a standpoint of, I knew I kind of wanted to get into what I'm into now. There were some other things that I wanted to get into as well, but I knew that, but I always wanted to have options, right? And so going to a school like Tennessee, where you have such a large network of people and people that are very supportive of you. And if you go out there, man, and play your heart out and, and give it everything you got on Saturday, man, they'll turn around and show that respect and show their appreciation by, being there for your family and doing, whatever they can to help you out along your way, whether it's in business or life or whatever afterwards, man. And that's such a huge thing, man. That Vol for Life thing is not just a saying. It's not just, whatever. It truly means something because, like I said, those fans, they spend their hard-earned money to come out there and watch us play on Saturdays, man. And like I said, if you return that favor by giving everything you got, man, they show their respect. And that's something that's really cool.
Gerald, I just thought about this. Do you remember a walk-on when you were at Tennessee by the name of Ron Bollinger? Ryan
Bollinger. Can't say that I do.
Okay. He was there. He might have come in right after you. He might have been there your last year. He would know. I wouldn't. But no, he's a family member. He was there. He was a GA there at Tennessee, and
nice.
He had the nice privilege when he first became a GA that he had to clean Coach Chief's desk every day. He goes, I don't know what he does every day, but he destroys his desk.
Well, Chief is not, like I said, Chief is one of those, you can tell he was one of those people like, it's organized chaos around him.
Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't surprise me that his desk was a mess every day. Because I mean,
Right.
I remember one day in practice, and this is a crazy story too. Kind of. So you guys remember this name? Yeah, the best name in college football, Jim Bob Cooter, right?
Oh yeah, Jim Bob Cooter. Yeah.
So
Was been in the NFL for years.
right. So Jim Bob, most people don't know. I mean, people who are around the program and know Jim Bob and know Jim Bob's story know this, but Jim Bob got his first introduction to calling plays when we were in college.
Right.
He knew he wasn't going to play, so he learned the offense as well as you could possibly learn it. He was sitting there with Randy all day long. And I'll never forget, I think we're in spring ball. Yeah, we're in spring ball. And, we're having a scrimmage day. And Randy comes in. He's like, hey, Jim Bob, you're going to call plays today. So it's Jim Bob versus Coach Chapis, Chief. And we are absolutely destroying Chief. Like, we are, like, killing him. We're scoring left and right. We're getting first downs. We're doing all kinds of stuff. And Chief is pissed. I mean, pissed. And he doesn't know that Jim Bob's – I don't know if he knew or not. I want to say he didn't know that Jim Bob was calling plays. I think he was just mad because we were having success. But we were laughing on the offensive side because we're like, dude, this, he's a junior in college, and he's, he's over here calling plays, and he's destroying what everybody considers the master of defense right now in college football. And Chiefs just start sending all out blitzes. Like, he was just like, screw it. Just start, Like, we would just start. We had a guy on our team. Everybody had somebody that they were called what they look like, right? And everybody used to say Chief looked like Saddam, right? Saddam Hussein. So they would start bombing. So it's like, Chief gonna start bombing you here. Right? They were like, hey, Chief gonna start. Saddam's gonna start bombing you here in a minute. You know what I mean? You get pissed off. So whenever we knew Chief was gonna get mad, we just knew we were gonna start getting crazy blitzes and all that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? Because he was like, he didn't want to lose practice. So that stuff was always fun. Yeah, man. But yeah, that was a cool story, man. For Jim Bob, just kind of, not. To see where he is now and having the success he is now and the stuff, and you saw, kind of the start of it. You know what I mean? It was that's just so cool, man. Like I said, I'm really grateful and appreciative, man, that I got the opportunity to be around some of the stuff and know these guys and have a connection with some of these guys that are having a lot of success now. And just proud of these guys, man, for how hard they've worked and what they've done. And like I said, they've been a part of it, man. It's really special.
Gerald, we would absolutely love this fall for you to join us to talk about Tennessee volunteer football and the rest of the SEC. Would you do that?
Sure. Yeah, sure. No problem, man. We'll sit down and get it figured out one way or another. But yeah, I'd love to. That'd be great.
Wonderful. Well, have a wonderful rest of your spring and summer, and good luck to you. And we will see you this fall when we will talk a little gridiron of the SEC, okay?
Sounds good, man. Have a good one. Appreciate you guys.
All right.
Gerald, it was a blast. Thank you, sir.
And Gerald, I will leave you with this. Rocky Top, you'll always be home, sweet home to me.
Wow. Wow.
You butchered that one, didn't he?
Karaoke with Stingray.
So look, check this out. We used to, before we leave, a buddy of mine who's no longer with us, we used to have a joke between us that Tennessee will sing Rocky Top no matter what the occasion is.
Right.
Right? Like, it doesn't matter whether it's a touchdown, guy gets hurt. Doesn't matter. Tennessee's gonna sing Rocky Top no matter what the situation is. No matter, it doesn't matter what's going on. And we would joke, and it was like, you get a first down, you even get, I remember that Miami game we played where we barely moved the ball at all. It was like, dude, if we moved the ball a foot, they played Rocky Top. So it was funny. And it was like, people always ask me, they're like, man, don't you ever get tired of that song? And I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, I'll be honest. Like, I'm one of those people. I'm like, I've heard the Rocky Top, but I've heard Rocky Top enough to last me 2 lifetimes.
Right.
Like, I'm like, I could definitely go without hearing that song again. But hey, when you get there, man, when you get there on Saturday, man, you start hearing the band playing. And of course, you know what I mean? Everybody, they get ready to run out the tee. that was still one. Again, that's still one of the. People always ask me what it was like to run through the tee, and I didn't really think it was that special until I look back on it now, and I'm like, and I remember going through it, and like I said, you're hearing Rocky Top and all that sort of stuff, and you're just like, yeah, man, that was crazy. Like that's that's a one of a kind entrance, onto a field for football, man. So yeah, Rocky Top's always going to be that, it is what it is, man. It's that song that you can't escape it, regardless of how whether you like it or you don't like it. You're never going to be able to escape it.
Gerald, thank you again. It has been an absolute blast, and we will definitely catch you in the fall, okay?
Sounds good, guys. You have a good one.
You
You
too.
too, Gerald. Take care of yourself.
All right, so Heath, that is going to wrap up a very, very fun and entertaining show there with Gerald Riggs and Heath. We cannot leave the Stingray show without doing one simple thing, and that is wishing a very happy birthday to a former player who has been on this show, and he actually chimed in the comments just a few minutes ago. Today is the birthday of none other than Mario Austin, Super Mario from Mississippi State, who grew up in Livingston, Alabama. The Stingray Show wants to wish you a very, very happy birthday, my friend. Go and enjoy it, and Hell State as always.
Mario was such a special guest, and
Yes.
he's been fun. He chimes in on the show. I always look forward to seeing Mario's comments, but Mario, all SEC player, and just a phenomenal player in the SEC and SEC legend himself.
Right.
And yeah, Mario, thank you, sir, and happy birthday to you.
Yes, sir. So I just wanted to make sure we ended it and did not leave out Mr. Mario Austin's birthday today.
Stephen, if you were standing beside Mario, that's probably where you'd come up. You'd probably come up like right under his chin.
Probably so, yes. All right. So, Heath, that is going to wrap up a 2-hour show today. When we return on the Friday edition, we're going to be joined by another former player, this time from LSU, as Rohan Davey will join us tomorrow to talk about his career down on the Bayou and winning 2 Super Bowl rings, backing up Tom Brady in New England. We will see you on the Friday edition of the Stingray Show. Heath, it is going to be a rather wet one out there today and tomorrow, so stay safe out there in Hernando, Mississippi, and we are out from this lengthy show, but it was fun, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Great show, Stephen, and hey, sayonara. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yes,
Good
sir.
Lord willing.
All right. Thank you, man. And Heath, I know that you've got a lot of work to do. I'm sorry that it went 2 hours,
Stephen,
but hey,
don't apologize. This was a blast today.
that was awesome.
Yeah, I can honestly say Gerald is probably going to slide into top 5 favorite guests for me.
Yes.
Just because Gerald told so many great stories.
Right.
Some guys hold back. Gerald did not hold. Well, I think he did hold back. I think he could have told a lot more.
Right.
But the things that he told were just phenomenal. So
yes.
But yeah, Gerald probably easily slides in to the top 5 all-time guests that we've had.
Guys, see you tomorrow on the Stingray Show. Have a wonderful rest of your Thursday.
What was that Stuart Scott used to say in the 90s on ESPN? ABC ya.
I guess. I have no idea. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Ferguson of South's Finest Meats, the official sponsor of the Stingray Show, has a message for you.
Everything we do here is fresh and custom made, custom to order. I tell people when they come in, if you don't see what you like, ask somebody. We've got the capability to process it, make it. If you want a different blend of hamburger meat, we'll do your brisket blend. We'll do your chuck blend. We'll do your sirloin blend. We do all that right here. We are a butcher shop. It's what we do. So please don't be afraid to ask if you don't see what you like. We can make you any size patty you want. We can make you any amount you want. People call me and say, well, how many patties come in the box? Well, ma'am, how many would you like in a box? You want 12, we'll put 12. You want 25, we'll put 25.
That's just one of the many things that South's Finest Meats has to offer, the official butcher shop of the Stingray Show. It's a new year, and now is the best time to review your insurance policies. With a helpful customer service team here to serve you in Alabama and over in Mississippi for all of your auto, home, life, and business insurance needs, call the Jeff Nee Agency of Alpha Insurance to create a customized plan to protect your family's home and autos. You can stop by his office at 3428 McFarland Boulevard in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, or simply call 205-462-8192, or call the number on your screen right there. And remember, with Alpha Insurance, the more you protect it, the more you save. Reach out to the Jeff Nee Agency of Alpha today for all of your auto, home, life, and business insurance needs.